Hey guys, it's 12:19 p.m. on October 16th, 2017, and I just want to remind everybody how to define the word hurricane since, thank God, on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, we all speak English and we can all use the same terminology that are the standards of meteorology and the standards of science. A hurricane is a storm with a violent wind, in particular a tropical cyclone in the Caribbean, not Ireland, and a wind force of 12 on the Beaufort scale equal to or exceeding 64 knots or 70 miles an hour, 74 miles an hour. Not 50 knots, not 38 knots, but 64 knots. And not 50 miles an hour, but 74 miles an hour. Now let me tell you why this matters, because I just did a video on this. I just went through most of Ireland's metrics that I could show you, and I thought it would be done until I started reading the comments on my video, which revealed that Ireland is on lockdown for a former Hurricane Ophelia that makes landfall. You guys, there's absolutely nothing in this sentence that is true except for the fact that Ireland is on lockdown. Ophelia is the Greek word for debt, as in D-E-B-T, as in what one will owe or one is obligated to pay. There's no mistake in the choice of this word for this particular fake storm that is not actually hitting Ireland. You do have a storm in Ireland right now, guys. I'm not even going to pretend that you don't, and I will show you that in a minute. But it is not a hurricane, and there is a reason why this is being perpetrated on the news. This is a complete fraud. The CNN and all of Reuters and all of the BBC are answering to the same organization that has put you people on lockdown. This is terrorism. It is terrorism through the media. Now, there are several things I want to go through here. One of them I'll just mention really quick. Listen to what he has to say about this storm. I'll just let you guys hear this really quick.
Of course, we've covered all of them here, but this particular one, as you said earlier, going the other direction. So we're going to talk about what its impacts are. It is unusual. Back 30 years ago today, actually, was the last time, back in 1987. It's known as the Great Storm of 87 that impacted this very region of Ireland and the UK. And, of course, we have it happening again here. Talk about this because it has lost its tropical characteristics. Notice the title on that graphic there. It is now a post-tropical, extratropical.
Yes, this is absolute nonsense. There's no such thing as a post-tropical, extratropical, blah, 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 blah. Nothing. This is absolute fraud. If you look, if this is actually the radar, it doesn't even move like a hurricane. A hurricane goes in a circle. This thing is not going in a circle. It looks like a storm. You guys have a storm coming to Ireland, but it's not a hurricane. And these numbers right here, he doesn't give us any reference, any resource, any quoting. He doesn't tell us where he's getting these numbers. Is he getting them from NASA? Well, NASA's in outer space. How does NASA know what the wind speeds are in the water? NASA's in outer space, guys. And these are cartoons. Now, they might actually represent pictures, but this is not a hurricane. Even the cartoon they're showing you doesn't represent a hurricane. So let's take a peek at what is actually measurable on the island of Ireland, because you guys have wind instruments in the water. These are your buoys. These have all sorts of data collected in them, and they're live. I'll show you that this is the Irish Weather Buoy Network, and it has live readings, and it shows us the time of these readings. It'll show us the wind speed and the maximum gusts. Now, a hurricane is measured by sustained winds, not gusts, but I will show you that whether you use gusts or wind speeds, it doesn't matter. There is no hurricane anywhere around here. Now, let's look at the position of these buoys, because the hurricane should have been coming if there was a hurricane here. The images that they're showing us here, well, wait, not this one. Where am I? The wind speeds that they're showing us here indicate that this hurricane is coming from the southwest and is traveling northeast, okay, which means the southwest portion of Ireland should be registering these wind speeds and these hurricane strength winds first. So M3, M5 should be, and M6 should be picking up the hurricane wind speeds first. So let's look at that. Let's first look at M3. M3 is right here. The wind speeds are 39.277. Let's make sure that we didn't miss any 80-mile-an-hour hurricane strength, but we haven't. This is over the last 24 hours, 12 hours here. And we have wind speeds down at 13 knots, peaking up at 40 knots, stopping for 2 hours of measurement time. Maybe there was a 74-mile-an-hour wind then, but that would be double, and 38 knots. And right now, the current wind speeds are at 39 knots. That's not hurricane strength. Remember, it's 64. So we did not have a hurricane come through the M3 buoy. Let's look at the M5 buoy. Let's go look there for next. M5 buoy has knots reading 40. That was the maximum knots we got about 2 hours ago. Okay, no hurricane there. Let's look at M6, just in case it traveled up far to the west, where at the west, which is actually where they show this hurricane traveling, we have wind speeds peaking out about 6 hours ago at 33 knots. You guys, right now we have wind speeds at 22 knots. Nothing even close to 64 knots per hour. Okay? Now, I can show you. Now, here's what's interesting to me. The M2 buoy. Let's take a peek at the M2 buoy, because this one is the one that's showing the highest wind speeds. And this doesn't make any sense, because the other ones should have picked up. The other ones right here, as I showed you, and as CNN showed you, these buoys on the outside here should have picked up the wind speeds first. Let me just enlarge this picture here to make it very clear to you what I'm telling you. There are buoys outside where this letter G is, down here where the end of the yellow is, and right down here. So this is where the storm is. It's going to travel up in this direction. The last place where we should see high winds is in that buoy on the east coast of Ireland and the west coast of London, or west coast of England here. So let's take a peek. I'll show you. That is exactly where we see high wind speeds, not hurricane strength, but high wind speeds. So let's go to the M2 buoy, which is right here, right outside of Dublin. Now this should be of great concern to people, because we're going to look and see that is the highest wind that's been registered is at the M2 buoy outside of Dublin. And that is 38.8 knots. Okay? It looks like it's dropping a little bit. The speed is dropping a little bit. But 38.8, 38.42. Okay, so these wind speeds have picked up, and these are the highest wind speeds that we're recording. Now let's look at the gusts, because the gusts are very interesting too. These are also the highest gusts. Again, at the M2 buoy. This is a big problem. The M2 buoy gusts are at 56.639. That is not a hurricane. It's close. I'm going to point out there that it's the wind gusts are close to a hurricane speed. But this defies logic. This defies the actual pattern that they're showing on television. And the bottom line is, whatever they did to get these wind speeds up, cooked up in Dublin, is completely separate and distinct from the actual measured instruments. Down here is recording of wind speeds. The M6, the M3, and the M5 do not even come close to indicating that a hurricane came through here. So how did the hurricane wind close to hurricane wind speeds show up in Dublin but miss all the periphery here? This is a question Ireland needs to ask, because what you're being shown on television is a complete fraud by fairies. Okay? This is a complete fraud by fairies. You have 30-year anniversary of a storm that I was too young to be tracking for you then, but I would bet that we've got something similar happening now. They've just gotten better with their instruments. Hurricanes don't hit Ireland, but communism and tyranny does. And right now, Ireland is on lockdown for a complete fraud. National Emergency Coordination Group just means tyranny network. This is not a hurricane. It's a dark sky, dark clouds. There's some rain here. But to put Ireland on lockdown for dangerous storm, you people have surrendered your rights and your liberties. And if you don't start using your heads, you guys, the essence of self-governance is critical thinking. If you guys are going to delegate your reason skills to those people who would terrorize you, you're going to be terrorized with tyranny. And I don't know what else to tell you. I'm going to show you this last one here. David Clinch, you are a complete fraud and you will answer to God for this. I want you to see this nonsense here. Watch him blow off a roof on a building and then call it a hurricane. Either that is photoshopped or they blew the roof off there. That David Clinch is a complete fraud. These people are going to be held accountable to God. And the only reason I'm making these videos is for those with eyes to see what's coming. And we have got tyranny coming. It's going to be a worldwide tyranny. And this is a complete fraud. It's a complete fraud. So, you guys, just heads up.